We were all there ourselves. Teenagers can be moody, they can be difficult, but they're still kids. Our health specialist, Leah Sarich, now with how to talk to your teenager and help them with a transition from child to young adult. And boy, is it hard sometimes.
It is hard. It's really hard. And you know, it's really hard for both sides. It's hard for parents and it's hard for the teenager too. Which is why I think it's really important to, first of all, understand what's going on in the adolescent brain, because it is changing dramatically at this time. I spoke with pediatric psychiatrist, Dr. Jericho, and she explains that a young person's brain is making that big transition from being a child to being an independent adult. So she said, basically, think of the brain as undergoing major renovations. We're seeing kind of a pruning or a cutting back of a lot of the neural pathways and connections that young people used to use effectively in their childhood. And what's happening is that there's a strengthening of associations between the mental and the emotional pathways in the brain. So the parts of the brain that are involved in a lot of thinking and analyzing and processing of information are starting to now become more connected with the emotional centers of our brain. Right? So the teenagers then are becoming more emotional, and that's a lot to figure out. So not only are they going, whoa, I'm feeling all of these emotions, but how do I control them? What do I do with them? And so not only are they recognizing those emotions in themselves, but then they're recognizing, wait a second, everybody else feels like this too. Right. So they're trying to negotiate how to have social relationships. That's why you see so much drama in their lives, right? Because they're realizing, oh my goodness, my friend feels this hugely. And it's an intense thing that's happening because of all this remodeling that's going in the brain. So that's happening as well. They might also isolate themselves a bit more, just so they've got time to figure out what's going on. So it's normal for a teen to withdraw a little bit, to isolate themselves, just to try to figure out what's going on. What's not normal, though, is when there's not a range of emotions. So, you know, we hear about teens being sullen or moody. That's normal to do that some of the time. But they should also bounce back maybe a day or two later and be happy and normal sort of again. So Dr. Jericho says that's what you want to watch for, is if they're sullen and moody all of the time, because that could be the emergence of depression or another mental illness.
Okay, so that's something to watch for.
Yes.
Now, let's talk about from the parent's perspective. How can you help when you feel like you can't get in? Right,
so this is really tricky. The main thing is to keep the lines of communication open. That's the bottom line. And Dr. Jericho says, you know, this can be really difficult, especially if you keep asking and you're not getting anything back. But she says that teen needs to know that you're asking. It's about sensitively responding to where your child is at. And I think that can be difficult because it also requires parents to shift and adapt too. And sometimes parents aren't ready to let go of the type of relationship they've had with their younger child. That can be a painful process to step back. But you need to know as a parent is that you're still vitally important. And you're playing a vitally important role in the life of your adolescent. They still need you to be there. They still need you to check in. Right, they need you to check in. Right. And so you're checking in and asking how are they doing, but you're also asking now how do they feel about what's going on with them, right? So you need to address those emotions that they're feeling. She says being a teen is a lot like being given the keys to a fast car, but you don't quite know how to drive just yet. So she's saying the parents need to step in with some of those driving lessons per se. And she says, you know, the same applies to the boundaries, the rules and structure. They still need that too. So they might fight you on some of that, obviously, right? But they need to know that you're not saying it's okay, just go, because they could wind up feeling very anxious about that as well. Right. So they still need those boundaries, absolutely.
Okay, so what about how to talk to your teen, like how to actually address
those conversations? Yeah, a few really quick tips. These are great. Dr. Jericho says talk in the car. Talking in the car is a really good idea because you're not sitting across the table from each other, you're not staring at each other in their eyes, and it's not super intense, right? And you also know it's going to happen for a limited amount of time. So she says sometimes that's a good place to chat with your teen. Also, meet them where they're comfortable. So maybe go to the library with them if that's where they like to hang out, or the mall, or a coffee shop. Go where they're comfortable and have a conversation. Also, this is a big one, if they share something with you that you find a little alarming, parents need to not overreact, which is very difficult. Don't overreact. Take a deep breath. Exactly. And don't overreact, because if you do, then those lines of communication are going to be shut down. So you want to overreact. And then you're also modeling for them how to deal with complex emotional issues, right? Woo. Yeah, it's tricky. So just a few tips there.
This is a good one. You're going to want to reflect on this. More information on your blog, breakfasttelevision.ca. Health specialist Leah Sarich. Thank you for that.
Very welcome.
A lot of people using that information.